Dr. Mazak, Juraj Mazak is fortunately with us, joined us on time, and will be talking about scaling experimental democratic school of legal framework. Hopefully you're ready. Are you ready? Yes, you are.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. I'm Juraj Mazak. It's an honor to present to you today the development of experimental democratic school in Slovakia, and to reflect on broader question how can an innovative project, a pilot project, evolve into legitimate and scalable component of national educational system. As I spent some time in other session, I'm sorry for not being here, and I see many many of Polish friends around here.
Some other company, okay.
Yeah, well, so I picked up a quote from Janusz Korczak, who said, "Zabawa jest pracą dziecka, to pogrzeb działanie dziecko se uczy i rozwija." Which in English, for those who don't speak or didn't understand my try of Polish, means play is the work of child, and it is through activity that he learns and grows. So, this presentation outlines the journey of a community initiative that has grown into one of the most significant educational experiments in Slovakia, and it also addresses the policy implications of such a development and the conditions under which alternative models may be responsibly integrated into legal frameworks among different countries. We started as a community garden called Ťahanovská záhrada, and that initiative began in Košice in eastern Slovakia, originally conceived as a civic space for cooperation, sustainability, in intergenerational learning, and it gradually became a practical demonstration of how responsibility, autonomy, and shared governance can function in everyday life. In September 21, primary school in Košice was officially approved by our Ministry of Education, and it serves pupils from age of 6 to 15, corresponding to ESSET level 1 and 2. So from the outset, the school was designed as an experimental model inspired by tradition of democratic and self-directed education, commonly associated with Summerhill or Sudbury approach, if you know those. So the growth has been substantial. We started with 300 pupils, and then next year we had doubled, and now we have over 800 of homeschoolers and 60 daily pupils. Those 800, it's generally like half of the percent of all homeschool pupils registered in Slovakia. So this development indicates that the model is not marginal, and it responds to significant and growing demand among families in our country. We operate on work days starting at 7:30, and one day of the week is devoted to experiential learning outside the premises. That means excursions, visits, community engagement. And in the morning, we begin at 8:45 with a community circle for planning, dialogue, reflection, fostering social cohesion and participatory habits. Afterwards, the pupils engage in educational offer, which means silent, quite productive activities, while educators act as facilitators and mentors. That means that you are not skateboarding in a hallway because we share the building with another school. Governance is based on direct democracy. That means every pupil and employee has one vote on school rules, school budget, subjects, conflict resolution, trips, and whatever any decision is taken within the school, which usually takes the headmaster. We have that community gathering. These committees and community meetings ensure democratic participation is embedded in daily practice, developing real-life civic competence. How is it possible? Well, we had to hide it all under research because probably, as I see the names, many of you are from former Eastern Europe, and In the eastern part, we are not allowed to prove democracy. In the western part, you don't need to prove democracy. So we are somehow problematic in here. So we designed a research and scientific framework for 9 years, and the school was conceived not merely as an alternative institution, but as a structured research project spanning for those 9 years. All the pupils across all the forms of participation, as well as employees, are included in the research framework. And there were 14 hypotheses that are being examined. So as you see on my screen, we are trying to find out details about intrinsic motivation, internalization of democracy, soft skills, emotional intelligence, self-regulation, etc. The methodology of the research combines quantitative measures and including standardized assessment with qualitative methods such as interviews, focus groups, observation, and longitudinal case studies. The objective is to verify within the Slovak cultural and social context whether foreign model of this democratic self-directed schooling can function effectively and sustainably. For Polish friends, you might know Bullerbyn Foundation around Warsaw. So they are running also some schools which are not that far in that research, but they are effectively offering this educational offer within Poland for hundreds of kids too. The central policy question is how such an experimental model can transition into a recognized and legitimate option within national legislation. So the aim is not to replace existing schools, it's rather the goal is to advocate for the legal recognition of free democratic school model with self-directed education as one legitimate pathway within the Slovak educational system. And this would ensure that the schools wishing to adopt such approach may do so within a transparent and regulated framework without operating in legal ambiguity. Scaling in this context does not mean uniform replication. As you see, democracy generates different outputs, so it means creating regulatory conditions that allow pedagogical diversity while maintaining the standards of safety, accountability, and curricular compatibility. And the Slovak experience reflects wider international challenges. Across many countries, education systems are confronted with declining student engagement and increased anxiety, reduced trust, and in public institutions. So, democratic self-directed model seeks to address these concerns by fostering autonomy, responsibility, and meaningful participation. The ongoing research confirms that academic outcomes remain comparable while motivation and democratic competencies increase. This model may offer valuable insights for systemic reform beyond Slovakia, as this is, so far as we know, the first longitudinal study on this kind of education worldwide. The research phase concludes in 2030. If empirical findings support support the hypothesis, the next step will be to propose legislative amendments reconciling democratic self-directed school as a formal option within compulsory education. Such recognition would reflect a commitment to pluralism within public education, and acknowledging that quality and equity can coexist with diversity of pedagogical approaches. For your imagination, we have 2,000 primary schools in Slovakia. 2 are Waldorf, 1 is Montessori, 1 is democratic, and that's it. We have full uniformity. It's very far from other countries around. So this is something I would like to emphasize. And this journey from community garden to a nationally significant educational initiative demonstrates that innovation often emerges from civil society. However, for innovation to contribute sustainably to public systems, it must be accompanied by rigorous research, transparent governance, and dialogue within policymakers. And the transitions from pilot to policy requires patience, 9 years of being neglected by the Ministry of Education. It requires evidence and institutional cooperation. So the Slovak experience suggests that democratic self-directed education can move beyond the experimental stage and enter the realm of legitimate public policy, provided that its effectiveness is carefully documented and responsibly regulated. And as I don't want to finish by reading the documentation, I give up on the rest of the time, and I'm happy to hear your presentations. Thank you very much for your presence.